Describing Ocmulgee and how special it is very hard to do in a sentence.
It's a very, very, very peaceful place.
The New York Times, within the last month or so, picked 52 places in the world to go this year. This was one. In the entire world.
A lot's happened here. A civilization existed for 17,000 years, frankly, which is the history of this place. And you feel the importance of a people who were removed here. You can feel that even if you don't particularly know the history. You know that there's something very special about this place.
It is such a special place. You've got 8 miles of trails. You've got paved trails for accessibility. You've got wooded trails if you prefer nature. You're going to pass water. You're going to see wildlife. But you're also going to pass these monumental earthworks that have been here for 1,000 years that are unique to the area. The Earth Lodge, where you can go inside and see the council house, original floor in exquisite shape, preserved all this time.
To me, the most important thing about Ocmulgee is just the depth of human experience in this place and the various layers of human history that have unfolded here. I mean, we have things that are more than 10,000 years old. It's a central site to Muskogee identity in the 17th and 18th centuries. It can help us tell the story of the forced deportation from the South in the 1810s and 20s. It's a place of enslavement and exploitation of black labor. It's a place of historic preservation, of community involvement. I mean, it's an ideal site for conveying the power of the American past, the tragedy, the violence of the American past.
And the sad part of the history and the very disturbing part of the history of them being removed, knowing that all of that happened right here, and that we're now partnering with the Muskogee Creek Nation, and this is their home.
That story is their story, and the story of their survival of that attempted genocide is their story, and it's not something that the National Park Service or the American government should just consult them on. It is something that the American public needs to hear and needs to understand and needs to hear from them.
Because the common question is, why does a tribe that's been gone for 200 years still care about this land, right? Well, we care because it's our ancestors that are buried here. We care because we still come here to get our medicines and our, cultural items, as well as our fires came from here. This is directly where our fires came from. And it wasn't that we wanted to leave, it's that we were forced to leave. And it's understanding what forced removal looked like. And Fort Hawkins was built as a way to keep the tribes in line, to make sure that we didn't go any farther east. We had already been moved from Savannah to the Oconee over to the Ocmulgee, and they wanted to make sure that we weren't going any farther because they were vastly settling everything moving forward. It's also understanding that besides speaking our traditional languages, we also spoke English. And part of us went to school, and we dressed like some of the settlers because we traded with the settlers. We traded cloth. It's that there were hundreds of years of trade that were happening, some peaceful, not always. There's a whole history. It wasn't just that they showed up and we left and went to Oklahoma. It was that there were negotiations happening all along the way. And we realized very early on, in order to be with these new neighbors, we had to get educated, which is why you will see some former Creek leaders that spoke English, were educated, could go in, could write English, and could negotiate on behalf of the nation, which was the Confederacy at the time. And when we died on this journey of walking with very few possessions, they would have to leave their people where they were. It's not like they could stop and bury and do a full ceremony. They would have to leave them on the side of the road and leave a blanket or whatever they had left to cover them. And growing up, the history that we all were taught, we are the survivors of those that made that long walk. We are the ones who still have to carry those stories forward. So we still sing songs today that came on that trail, that came from those long walks and what that was.
It's National Park's job to lift up the voices and make a place where these incredibly important stories of the fabric of the identity of the United States of America can be told in an authentic manner.
I think that in Georgia specifically, removal and what removal really was has not been taught here. And that is a huge detriment to this community, to not understand the land that they stand on. When you're doing a tour, you're talking to people about who we were, and to see their faces like completely just like light up, like, oh wow, that's not how I was taught, and that's not, I never knew that, and I didn't know that you all did that. And so it's exciting to see that we are educating people and breaking down the walls of lack of knowledge, right? To help them to understand, and then they'll educate the next generation, and that's how you influence change. And so for me, that honor to be able to be in this role to do that is just incredibly humbling.
We are on the Ocmulgee River, and in particular we're on the fall line. What that means is that's where the Piedmont meets the coastal plain, and that makes a kind of unique place on the river where it is flatter and more navigable.
It's also why civilization thrived here for 17,000 years. I mean, this is they understood the importance of this sort of 30-mile area along the Ocmulgee River.
Biologically, it also makes the place a pretty unique, interesting place. If you want to protect biodiversity, protecting any land in the Southeast is going to get you the biggest bang for your buck. And the Ocmulgee is a really unique place in terms of having plants and animals that are here and no place else in the world.
It does have a unique species of shoal bass that are only found on 3 rivers in the world. This is one of them. The other 2, Flint and Chattahoochee River. So there's a unique species of black bear that is found right below as the country starts changing and you get into the swamp area around Bond Swamp.
But what I wanted to do was try to put into words the really good natural experience that I had here, the migrating hawks in the fall that I listened to, the wood storks who came through, the animal life that's here year round, the white-tailed deer, the otters down at the river that you can see if you sit still for a very long time down at the end of the Opalofa Trail.
So one of the species that I love talking about is the robust red horse sucker. It is a type of fish that is found in the Ocmulgee, particularly along this stretch from Macon to Hawkinsville. And it was a species of fish that we actually thought was endangered, that we hadn't seen it for many, many years. But it was essentially rediscovered in the Ocmulgee Basin, and it is breeding here. And so it is one of those unique species. It is only found in, it is probably one of the most endangered fish species in the United States. So of course there's many different species that are native here, but I think one that I would highlight is river cane. And so it is actually a native bamboo here. And in the southeast, if we look at historic descriptions of the area, people would describe these cane breaks, and that was just simply areas that were just swaths of this river cane. And it's incredibly important to all kinds of species, particularly birds.
The flora and the fauna in this region are incredible, and we want people to have those trails to get out, to safely walk around, to not damage anything, to be able to hunt and fish and just enjoy the landscape.
And so the preserve component will allow for a lot of the areas down this corridor, and a lot of my dear friends, they love to hunt and fish there, and it will not only will it be allowed, it will be protected the way the park is protected, meaning it'll be public. And so people that are into the hunting and fishing, they will be able to use it. Their kids will be able to go there, their grandkids will be able to go there, and it won't be private property that's privately leased. So it'll be more access to hunting and fishing for everyone.
They will put a bunch of land into conservation and build trails along the outside because they want that core ecosystem that's fragile and volatile to not have human contact. And that's a lot of what the Bond Swamp Wildlife Refuge is. If the ecosystem of those hunting preserves fades away, if it gets developed, this is the ecosystem that supports these mound sites, and the wetlands all around it is gonna dwindle. And so understanding that connectivity and understanding the hunting practices and the fishing practices of species management is an act of land management.
We don't have a lot of places like that, and so being able to capture this moment and protect this very large expanse of natural habitat would be really, really important for Georgia, for the Southeast, and I think has the national significance to make it a national park. Ocmulgee Mounds is such a special place because it preserves the history, the culture of the people that lived here for thousands of years, and it continues to work. The people that work here work very hard with the nations to try to maintain that relationship, preserve everything, work with them on how they take care of everything out here, take that very serious.
As we've continued our relationship with the Muskogee people and nation, I've really come to appreciate this, incredibly long human history that is here, and the connection to the Muskogee Nation who is still here, and that has really broadened my appreciation of what this place is.
The thing about the national parks that a lot of people don't realize, they have two missions. One, protect and preserve the land, to manage the land, but also to tell the stories of the land. And telling the stories of the land is something that they haven't always done well, especially at this park. They know that we're a part of this, but they don't know all of how we use this land. And so the partnership with the nation is for us to continue to come back, to help educate, to talk about, the weaponry we use, to talk about our ceremonies, about the culture. It's about why the doors of the mounds all face east and why the burials up to the west. It's, understanding some of those things and understanding why we lived along the water and why when we made it into Oklahoma, we named our capital city Ocmulgee, Oklahoma. It is the capital of the Muskogee Creek Nation today. So one of the things here in the Southeast is that our words are etched on the entire landscape of the state of Georgia. You can't go anywhere and not find a river, a town, a county that has one of our words. It's really important for us to make sure that, one, not only do people say our names correctly, but they know what those mean and they know the battles or something that happened there. We are the ancestors of the Muskogee and the Ute people. This is the Ocmulgee Mounds, it's not the Indian Mounds. And that's important. Names are important, words are important.
You can't really conserve and protect and preserve these cultural sites without a real deep, intimate understanding of what they meant and what they mean.
That's part of this director of advocacy role for me, is helping to bring to life these people that are not here, to help people to see that we are a modern people, an evolved people, and still have a history that we want everyone to know and learn.
In February of this year, we raised the Muskogee Creek Nation's flag over City Hall. That is as a symbol of our relationship, and a symbol that Ocmulgee was essentially the capital city of the Lower Creek Confederacy. In that legislation, we codified a land acknowledgement. This is incredibly important. That flag wasn't raised by an act of a resolution. The only way that flag can come down is through a change in our ordinance. The other thing we did was we put that land acknowledgement in the code.
And I think we're in this time of where people are wanting to acknowledge all history, right? And a land acknowledgement does that. It's supposed to acknowledge the names of the people, the water, the land, the people who are buried in those lands, and those tribes.
Acknowledging this land and its original stewards and their forced dispossession and removal, and the need for us to learn and understand from them about how to steward this land together with them. That is important enough to put in our code.
It permanently, in the law for the Macon-Bibb County, says that we are on the ancestral homelands of the Muskogee and Ute people. And this is who was here and this is why they were here, and then they left and they made their way into Oklahoma and still exist today. That's important because that is the history that we have now protected and is done here. It's also important when we have, different businesses or different conferences and we say that and people are like, oh, I didn't know that. I've never heard of that. Let me do some research, right? Where we have been able to follow it up here in Macon is not just saying the words, doing the flag raising, the fact that we were permanently meant to be erased from the landscape of this land, and our sovereign flag now flies back in our homeland in the capital city in front of City Hall is an incredible opportunity.
Well, the park was created back in the 1930s. To be frank, it's difficult to get Ocmulgee off the ground in the 1930s. the federal government is not in the business of acquiring a lot of new land in the 1930s that they have to pay for. It's the height of the Great Depression. So community leaders actually pool together their resources and buy up the land and then turn it over to the federal government. And then it becomes Ocmulgee National Monument in 1936.
I think people think of a national park as like the Grand Canyon, which is magnificent. I've been there and it's worthy of being a national park. It's amazing, but I think they think that's what you need to see when you go to a national park. That's changing, and not just with Ocmulgee, but with other parks. They're looking at major milestones in history that these places need to be preserved, and they are magnificent. This was so much bigger than this Earth Lodge. You know, we look at this tiny, what we thought, we meaning me, I'm sure archaeologists knew better, but tiny village, and we learned, no, it wasn't a tiny, it was huge. And then it spread all the way through, up and down the river, so it's very significant. And it's significant that it was preserved as much as it was, even with the things that weren't preserved. It's significant that it started with 3 local, grassroots local citizens that just got tired of seeing people running around on the mounds, and they just started a fight to make this become a park. And that was a long time ago and still happening, and you've still got your grassroots people that are working very, very hard, and they're doing an amazing job.
I am Seth Clark, and I'm the Executive Director of the Ocmulgee National Park and Preserve Initiative. And this is the most modern iteration of pushing to make a national park and preserve out of the ecosystem that makes up the National Historical Park and the cultural sites in it.
So the national park system is, I think, as Ken Burns said, America's greatest idea. I agree with that. I think the idea of protecting these special places for generations to come is so important, because otherwise the history does get lost. And while the Grand Canyon is one of the more beautiful places to go to in America, even that doesn't have some of the national significance that we have here in Middle Georgia with the Ocmulgee Corridor and the human history component that we have documented here, both prehistoric and historical human history that needs to be protected.
And for the last 3 years, the National Park Study has studied whether they should be included into this grander national park.
And all of the components that the National Park Service cares about, this place meets on every level, and some exceeding, again, some of the more iconic parks that we have in the country. And so exposing that and letting America know is very important, and that's why we've been working at it for so long.
Even though we cannot come backwards because life only goes one direction, we can still make sure that our people are protected and taken care of. And we want to make sure the bones and the artifacts and the remains are not dug up, and that people are saying our names right.
When you go through this process of becoming a full-fledged national park, what you are saying is that this is a place of national significance. And the fact that there are so few national parks in the Southeast, I think is just quite sad, because that is just untrue, that we do not have places of national significance. We definitely do, and I think this is one of them.
We are seeking co-management. Co-management is really huge in that you talk about the preservation and protection of the land. You talk about the land management, which means invasive species. So co-management is different than consultation. Co-management puts us at the seat of the table, and that we are equal partners with all of our partners, National Park, National Wildlife Refuge, any of those agencies that have a piece of the Ocmulgee Corridor. We are a part of that.
So, as far as I'm concerned, from where I sit, the future of Ocmulgee Mounds National Historical Park is really bright. I think it can serve as a model for indigenous nations and federal institutions moving forward.
So I'm excited for more of what this opportunity can do, what this park does, the people it draws in, and we're just going to see what happens from here.
If you're an outdoors person, it's going to be great for you. If you're a history person, it's going to be great for you. If you're indigenous, it's going to be great for you. So it's a win all the way around, and Macon will benefit from the tourism dollars as well. And the park will, our revenue will go up from visitation, so we'll be able to have more and more programs.
There are a whole bunch of people, me being one, my wife being another, who are wed to this park,
It is one of the most visited places in Macon for a reason, because so many people outside of Macon recognize what is special here. And so hopefully more and more people will recognize that it's a special place.
To me, the most important thing is more and more people will be exposed and understand the history that we have here.
What happens a lot in the state of Georgia, because of the absence of federally recognized tribes, people see us as prehistoric creatures, right? We're the dinosaurs. They don't realize that we are connected to a modern people, that we are still a people. And so bringing those voices together in a tribal, non-tribal partnership is incredible. This land is not just our story to tell, but it's everyone that's walked this land. And that's what this partnership is about. It's protecting it so all of those stories can be told.
History matters because it's who we are. You know, we use the past to understand where we came from. And you can slice the we in a lot of different ways. Is it we as Middle Georgians? Is it we as Maconites? Is it we as students in my class? You know, it helps us to understand who we are as a people, as a nation.